Are home prices in Kansas City still increasing? And if so, how much longer can this continue? This has been a popular question I've been getting from a lot of my clients, a lot of viewers of this channel who are either in Kansas City, relocated to Kansas City. You're watching the prices, you're looking at mortgage rates, and really in the back of all of our minds is how much longer can this trend continue? It does not seem sustainable. Home prices are increasing at a much far faster rate than we've really ever seen before. And how can they keep going even as mortgage rates continue to increase? I'm sure you've seen them in the last couple of weeks, and we're going to break all of that stuff down here in this video. But I figured a great way to start is with this political cartoon. You've got the Federal Reserve, the big airplane trying to land on the tiny little tightrope. The worker freaked out about it, doesn't know what to think, and then you've got cleared for soft landing. And this seems to be quite a bit of messaging that we're all seeing throughout the economy right now, is that there's a soft landing, and somehow, some way, we're not at a risk for a recession. I mean, if you even look at the markets, the stock market, it's doing well, it's holding on, and everybody's probably wondering, how is that? How is that even remotely possible? And I want to break down what this all means in the context of the Kansas City real estate market and home prices in Kansas City. And the first thing that it makes sense to start with is really home price data over the last couple of years. So I think Redfin has a great interactive tool for this. You can go and look this up yourself, but I've just pulled up a couple different counties throughout the Kansas City metro area that I get questions about often. And what you can see is that over the last year, in Johnson County specifically, you've got about 6% price growth. In Jackson County, it's about 6.4%. And in Clay County, which is north of the river, you've got about 2.3% price growth. And if we zoom out about 5 years, you can see a very steady trend upwards. And if you've purchased a home, if you've been in the market, it certainly feels like even faster increases than what we're really seeing on this graph, albeit it is spread out among a 5-year timeline. I mean, even if we just pull up the median list prices in the Kansas City metro area over the last several years, you can see that there was quite an uptick about a year ago in May of 2023. And now where we're sitting around April of 2024 is just a step down from that, right? So there's been a little bit of volatility, but despite all of that stuff, we still see the sale price, the median sale price increase by about that 6% number from just a year ago. So do keep in mind that this is just list price, not sale price. And there's major difference between those two. As you've seen, a lot of homes are going over the list price. A lot of homes are selling under the list price. But I figured that this was pretty interesting to see that you've got this quite a bit of a dip as mortgage rates were increasing over the last year. And then of course, you've got that list price, the median list price increasing as rates kind of cool down. And now, this could go in either direction. Now we're going to break down mortgage rates here in just a second and how that impacts everything. But long story short, this is a graph that shows all of the inventory, all of the homes for sale on the market across the country. And what you can see is you've got this big peak around 2008, right? The last meaningful recession in the housing market. And of course, today we're all the way down here. And despite mortgage rates, no matter what mortgage rates do, our housing market, home prices here in Kansas City, they are dictated wholly by supply and demand. But I thought this graph was just an excellent piece to kind of show the massive discrepancy between the last time we saw a meaningful drop in home prices and then, of course, what we're staring down the barrel of today. Is it sustainable? I think that's a completely separate question. Then will prices continue increasing? And based on what this graph shows, supply and demand, it very well looks like home prices could continue to keep creeping up even as mortgage rates continue increasing. Now, before we get to part number 2, which is about mortgage rates right now and how it impacts home prices here in Kansas City, if this is your first time seeing these videos, then welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Massa. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Kansas and Missouri. We've been doing these market updates about every other week or so, just because it's like the most asked question that I get. I know it's on the top of a lot of people's minds. Home prices are getting crazier by the day and mortgage rates are like a whole different story, which we'll get to here in just a second. But if you'd like to stay updated with the Kansas City real estate market, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you see the future updates. And of course, everybody's situation is different, whether you're going to buy, sell a home, whether it's now, whether it's next year, and you just want to make sure you're in the best position possible. Feel free, if you want to make all of this stuff stuff specific to your situation. Love to have a conversation with you about it and help support in any way we can. So feel free to give me a phone call, text message, email. I answer all of those personally. Never too busy to take your call or help answer any questions and have a conversation about this. Would absolutely love to support you. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to part number 2, mortgage rates, how they impact the housing market here in Kansas City, and why even though mortgage rates continue to increase, why home prices in Kansas City are increasing despite that. Now, according to St. Louis Fed, this is what mortgage rates have looked like over the last 5 years or so. You've got this pretty big uptick from 2022 onwards, and then of course in 2023 in November we had a little spike upwards, and of course they've come back down and now they're starting to go back up again. So it's quite like a roller coaster. I really like how Housing Wire right here, how they show their data. So I want to break this down for you, but what we're seeing right now is a major difference between FHA and conventional. And when I say major difference, I mean 0.5, but that adds up, especially over a 30-year time period. So if you look at conventional loans, you're somewhere around a 7.5% mortgage rate as of today, which is Wednesday, May 8th. And then if we look at FHA loans, you're somewhere below 7%, around 6.94%, which is certainly worth it if you do qualify for an FHA loan. And of course, I've had a couple clients go the 15-year route instead of the 30-year fixed rate route, and those are sitting somewhere around 6.75%. Now, if we go back to this political cartoon that we kind of covered at the beginning of the video, it's like we've got all of these financial pressures going on with the economy. Inflation's not great. All of us are seeing price increases when we go to the grocery store, when we buy pretty much anything at this point. Like gas prices are starting to climb back up as well. And on top of that, we've got all of these compounding pressures. It's more expensive to borrow money. It's more expensive to spend the money that you already have buying the same products that you would have bought just a year ago or 2 years ago, and they're hiked up quite a bit. And the real question here is, even as mortgage rates continue to increase, as prices for pretty much everyday goods continue to increase, how is it possible that home prices here in Kansas City continue to increase? And what you'll notice if we go back to this graph and we zoom all the way out to around the 2007-2008 recession, you'll see the peak for mortgage rates then was around 6.52%. Right? And we're well above that right now. But again, the major difference this time around is that supply is just so low. So what it seems like is happening is that even though mortgage rates are climbing, even though they're higher than they were in 2008, because supply is so limited, home prices will continue to increase because demand just far outstrips supply. And pretty much at this point, every one home buyer that's active in the market, looking at properties, touring them, writing offers on them, you've got about 10 to 15 others that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for something to happen, waiting for the affordability situation to somehow resolve itself, for mortgage rates to go down. And it's not an ideal situation for pretty much anybody right now. Now, I did pick out a couple different articles that I want to take you through. We'll get kind of an expert consensus on what's happening with mortgage rates and why the timeline for mortgage rates coming down keeps shifting farther and farther back. This one is from Forbes. The reason why you don't see all the branding is because I'm using a Chrome extension to remove all the ads. It was almost unreadable with the amount of ads popping up. But if you scroll down, expectations for interest rates in 2024, they are expected to move lower in 2024. The reason that the stock market is still performing well is they're factoring a 10% chance that interest rates won't get cut in 2024 at all. And they go on to say that it's very unlikely that the Federal Reserve chooses to do anything with interest rates even come the meeting July 12th. But it does say that that meeting will likely give us an idea of what the trajectory looks like for the rest of the year. Now, this article from US News and World Report, it does shine some light as to when we could potentially see some interest rate cuts. And it says projections for slower GDP and employment growth alongside easing inflation still appear to be the Fed's medium-term base case, and if realized, would be supportive to rate cuts. And it says the next key inflation print, so the next thing that the Federal Reserve is looking at, will happen on May 15th, the consumer price index, just to see where inflation's at. And it ultimately goes on to say that for 2024, we currently project the Fed rate cuts occurring in September and December, although we acknowledge risk to our call is for later timing on the first cut, particularly if inflation surprises to the upside in the coming releases. Now, here's another article from USA Today, not the most ideal source, but it does cite a couple different mortgage rate experts, and we've cited these and we've seen these predictions kind of shift farther and farther backwards, at least when it comes to the timeline of when we'll see mortgage rate decreases. It says Fannie Mae forecasts the average 30-year fixed rate to drop to 6.4% by by year end. Their previous prediction was about 5.9% in February, so obviously that's quite a bit more expensive. The Mortgage Bankers Association now predicts rates at about 6.4% by year end. That's up from what it forecasted, which is about 6.1%. National Association of Realtors, that nobody's a fan of right now, predicts that rates are going to average about 7.1% this spring before settling around 6.5%. So kind of in line with the previous prediction. Wells Fargo sees the rates will probably be around 6.5% at year end. So will we see a ton of movement with mortgage rates? It's very unlikely at this point. Will we see a lot of rate cuts before the end of the year? Again, very, very unlikely. But of course, that trajectory could very well change over the next couple months as we get more and more data back in. Now, one last thing that I'd like to share with you is this article from Market Watch. It says that Americans expect mortgage rates to rise nearly 10% in the next 3 years. And of course, I have no idea who they're surveying in this study, in this poll, but it does say that households have a gloomy view of mortgage rates and that consumers on average said that over the next year, they expect the 30-year mortgage rate to rise to 8.9% and in 3 years to 9.7%, both of which are series highs. Now, that would be absolutely nuts if mortgage rates hit 10%, especially considering that the last time that happened was in the late 1900s. And keep in mind that after adjusting for inflation, household incomes haven't increased a whole lot since then compared to how quickly home prices have grown. So that seems like an absolute disaster. Let's hope that that is not the case, because as of right now, if inflation starts coming down over the next couple months, if jobs stop growing as much as they are, the economy slows to a normal pace below 2% inflation, it likely could mean that we'll see those mortgage rates come down, kind of like those predictions expected and anticipate, which is somewhere around the mid 6% by the end of this year. And it's just crazy. If you've been watching these videos that we've been making, it's like all these experts like a whole year ago were saying essentially that mortgage rates would be below 6% like months ago compared to where we're at today. So at the end of the day, why are home prices still going up in Kansas City? It has everything to do with supply and demand and very little to do with mortgage rates right now. Although, you could make the case that, since mortgage rates are very high, fewer people are wanting to sell their homes. And that's why you've got this shortage of housing in Kansas City. That's one part of it. But the more fundamental part of this is that we don't have enough housing units across the country. And since 2008, there haven't been enough homes built in this country every single year to keep up with that. And as a result, even if mortgage rates drop tomorrow, even if a whole lot more people put their homes on the market for sale, we will likely still see home prices continue to increase, just because that's how much demand we've got compared to the amount of supply on the market. So once again, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe so you see future market update videos. If you'd like to have a conversation about what all of this stuff means for your specific situation, we'd be absolutely happy to do it. All my contact information is on the screen and down below this video. Feel free to give me a phone call, text message, email. Never too busy to take your phone call or have a conversation with you, and we'd absolutely love to do what we can to hopefully give you some things to think about so you're in the best position possible to get a great price for your home if you're selling it, or get a really good deal on a home if you're buying one. So with all that said, make sure to click right here for the video that YouTube thinks you would enjoy the most, or if you're into new construction homes, feel free to click here, which is a whole playlist of videos. We've got touring different new home communities around Kansas City. So click either here or here, and I'll see you on the other side.